gives you practical tips to apply in the kind of work that you do with different teams and groups. My name's Will Besson. I'm here with my colleague Bevan. Bevan, how are you?
Good, thank you, Will.
We've got a question that comes up a fair bit on different LinkedIn forums, different groups that we work with today, and that's the question about what is important to remember when reporting on a facilitated event. You've actually made it through the hard part, at least you think so. You've worked with the group and all that, but how do you put together a report that is true to what was said, but also really provides some value to the people that need to go ahead and implement those things?
Sure. And I think in some ways you've hit the nail on the head. We tend to think that the actual facilitation is in fact the end all and the be all. My experience is that in fact the real value for clients, for teams, comes from, in many cases, the reporting. That's the thing where many people fall down. They either don't do it, they don't do it in time, they don't do it with the appropriate neutrality, and that in fact leads then to people saying a month, 2, 3 months, whatever happened from that workshop. And that's almost a great indicator that you really weren't effective, you weren't delivering value for your clients. So reports are really, really important. You mentioned LinkedIn. What sorts of things come up on LinkedIn about reporting?
Really looking for pragmatic solutions around how do you structure your report. So how do you give value, really from taking something that might be on butcher's paper through to a Word document.
Sure. So in a really practical sense, then I guess one of the things that I do is to do a reasonably comprehensive report, but to make sure that that report does not leave my office until the executive summary has been brought right to the front. To the absolute outcomes are on page 1. They're not buried at page 10, somewhere back there. And not only are they on page 1, but sentence 1 hits the reader, the client, the team manager right between the eyes. Sentence 1 is a critical one. It's not just setting the scene, we held a workshop. It's bang. This is the critical message that came out of this workshop. If they read no more than that, then at least you got through to there. The rest of it backs it up. So that's one practical tip that I'd look at, yeah.
And one that I've picked up on your reports, Bevan, as well, is that key message. But then under that, there may be 9 or 10 really salient points that came out of discussions, consensus points, and then further on, within the detail of the report, almost signposting back to them. So if point 1 was about a certain need for a communications process or something like that, then that's where all that really good group discussion, that process that brought about that consensus sits.
Yeah. I guess another practical tip that I would say is that when I'm contracting with a client and the client says, we'll do all the reporting, we'll do all the write-up, my antennae go up just a fraction. It may be slightly cynical of me, but my antennae go up and say, let me just think here whether this is a case that the report is almost prepared in a sense already and you want me to do the facilitation. Now, that's being very cynical and that's usually not the case. However, I must admit that my default position is that I will do the reporting because I can carry the neutrality through to really render the account. And I don't want it to be that on the day he facilitated really well, it was neutral, but then somebody else wrote the reporter. And of course, you're left with that. The extra really pragmatic tip in that case is make sure your name's not on it. If they want to write it up, make sure their name's on it. Practical tip. One other, and not one other, but a key one that you've certainly been very strong in lately is this concept of real-time reporting, real-time communication.
Yeah, we made a commitment a couple of years ago that I was quite sick of typing up butcher's paper. It was the kind of job that fell to me, and I thought there's got to be a better way we can do this. We now use a lot of input via iPads, web-based response software, things like that, where people write their own messages in small group work. Gives me a chance to collate that on a computer, and there's actually no reason why I can't get a report out on the day by close of business in a really strategic visual storytelling kind of format to those participants. There's lots of really great programs out there that can do it. Prezi is one that's great for presenting things. I mean, the challenge that I'd put to you is that there shouldn't be an excuse as to why you can't get something strategic and communicable out on the day, bearing in mind that there's lots of really rich, detailed stuff that may have to come a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, and it's been an enormous learning curve for me. I think bringing that notion of communication as an extension of how you add value to reporting. That in fact, rather than just seeing reporting as something that must merely be an absolute word-by-word account of each word that was said, in actual fact, there is a role there for communication. So as you said, the on-the-day real-time communication report with the disclaimers on it, that this is real-time, so that as people are leaving the workshop, they can in fact be sending that, emailing it, flicking it around to the other members of their team saying, this is what we covered in the meeting we've just finished. Get back to me by tonight if there's some things that we need to think about. So yeah, I just think it's the way to go. It's a great way to add some value, a great way for viewers to add value to the reporting that they're doing around it.
Definitely, because those people that are in the workshop are often the converted. Yep. But we forget that they actually have to go into their organisations or communities and sometimes sell those outcomes they've come up with. Really sell them. So putting them in a format that's easy to sell is part of that value you offer as a facilitator.
And the hardest thing of all is trying to sell something that you have to almost reheat. Far better to be able to sell something that's ready to go, bang, than to try and reinvigorate it 2 or 3 weeks later. So
fast food facilitation, mate.
Fast food facilitation. We're on the mark.
Microwave dinners. Cool.
Okay, thank you. Good to catch up with you again, and we'll see you next time.